the Director of Ceremonies, Secretary for Information and Broadcasting Services, Comrade Nick Mangwana, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Ambassador Frederick Sharma, Minister of State and Devolution for Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable Comrade Charles Chiwenga, Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Honorable Dr. Jenfan Luswere, Minister of Youth, Empowerment, Honorable Tino Machakaire, the Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, Honorable Barbara Rodzi, the Chief Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Dr. Martin Rushwaya, Chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dr. Vincent Ungwe, is represented by Dr. Choruma. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Provincial Job Harare Province, veterans of our liberation struggle, ex-detainees, refugees, and war collaborators, senior government officials, representatives of political parties, if there are any here, captains of industry, students, churches, civil society organizations, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, good morning to you all. My address to you today marks 22 years since the imposition of sanctions by Western countries, led by the United Kingdom, the European Union, and the United States of America, through the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act, ZIDERA. And today is a very important day, as we mark this Anti-Sanctions Day. It also coincides with our 20th annual People's Conference of the ruling party ZANU-PF. And as ZANU-PF, we will continue to say, land has been united by its people, and its people by its land, and there is no apology to that. Over the years, most of the sanctions imposed by the European Union, the United Kingdom, and most of its allies have been removed or greatly reduced. The United States of America, ZIDERA, however, remains in place as an albatross around Zimbabwe. The sanctions include financial restrictions and illegal economic measures that alienate Zimbabwe from global supply chains and the global financial system, as well as bar capital inflows, mainly from the West. Since 2001, we estimate that Zimbabwe has lost or missed over 150 billion United States dollars through frozen assets, trade embargoes, export and investment restrictions from potential bilateral donor support, development loans, IMF and World Bank balance of payments support, and commercial loans. This has forced our gross domestic product to contract drastically. In the 2 decades that followed the imposition of these heinous and illegal sanctions, the illegal sanctions are also a direct attack on Zimbabwe's currency, which is our sovereign currency of choice. And our motherland, Zimbabwe, remains subdued by the United States dollar. The United Nations is a multilateral organization that is better positioned to provide legitimacy and credence on issues of international relations. In 2021, the United Nations appointed Ms. Alena as a special rapporteur on the cohesive unilateral sanctions on Zimbabwe. She found out that, and I quote, over the last 20 years, sanctions and various forms of over-compliance with sanctions have had a subtle ripple effect on the economy of Zimbabwe. Further, they have negatively impacted on the enjoyment of fundamental human rights, including access to food, health, safe drinking water and sanitation, education and employment, unquote. The United Nations rapporteur also observed that the situation limits Zimbabwe's ability to guarantee the functioning of public institutions, delivery of service, and maintenance of essential infrastructure. To this end, this undermines the right to development of the Zimbabwean people and impedes the achievement of sustainable development goals. The sanctions, which have been repeatedly extended, do not correspond to the requirements of Article 4 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The sanctions on Zimbabwe are thus illegal, unfair, and a violation of our sovereignty and right to self-determination. The United Kingdom claims that it imposed sanctions to discourage the government of Zimbabwe and any person or entity from abusing Zimbabweans, as well as to promote the rule of law and good governance. Meanwhile, the United States claims it imposed and maintained sanctions on Zimbabwe as a favor to provide for a transition to democracy and to promote economic recovery. What kind of nonsense is that? Zimbabwe has a sovereign right to elect its own leaders and to govern itself without external interference. Nyika inovakwa nekutongwa nevene vayo. Ilizwe rakiwa libuswe na vanikazi valo. A country is built and ruled by its own people, not foreigners, but by its own people. This is our land. Despite having a huge population in the United Kingdom, Zimbabwe does not seek to interfere with the politics and the electoral processes of the United Kingdom or the United States of America. They do their own elections, we don't interfere with them. They do their own rules, that we don't interfere with them. And so Zimbabwe do their own election and we do our own laws, and nobody should interfere with us. It is also surprising how the United States seeks to promote Zimbabwe's economic recovery with an act that strangles the Zimbabwean economy and limits its participation in the global economic system. Despite the sanctions that have weakened our institutions and degraded our infrastructure, Zimbabwe has religiously held free and fair general elections every 5 years. The sanctions which seek to induce a change of government in Zimbabwe are in essence creating an unfair electoral playing field by supporting, favoring, and capacitating regime change agents against the will of Zimbabweans, but they will not succeed. The West is using democracy, human rights, and economic recovery packaged as responsibility to protect, as a cover to punish Zimbabwe for reclaiming land from colonial landlords and redistributing it to the landless majority. Zimbabwe refused to be part of Pax Britannica, and the empire, so-called empire in brackets, responded with vengeance. To these countries, the Zimbabwean experiment of reclaiming land forcibly taken away from the indigenous people should not be allowed to succeed at all costs, lest the rest of disempowered societies in the world will follow suit. We took our land. Those who want their land to be ruled by other people is their choice. But in Zimbabwe, we took our land back. Zimbabwe demands no more than equal status with the rest of the countries in the world which are enjoying full rights of self-determination as enshrined in the 1945 United Nations Charter. Our foreign policy is underpinned by the mantra, we are an enemy of none and friend to all, in which we seek win-win friendly collaborations with all countries in the world. Whilst the first 2 decades of the illegal sanctions wreaked havoc on us, and devastated our economy, whose highlight was the economic collapse of 2008. Zimbabwe is learning to survive under the siege and scourge of these illegal and heinous sanctions. We have come to realize that economic growth does not come from handouts, but from using the resources endowed to us by the Almighty God. Despite the illegal sanctions, Zimbabwe in the past 5 years realized the growth that has seen our gross domestic product surge from around 20 billion United States dollars in 2018 to over 40 billion United States dollars this year. Our growth potential, however, is far greater than what we are managing now, all because of the degrading effect of the heinous sanctions. The African Union in general and the Southern African Development Community countries in particular have suffered immensely as a result of the illegal sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe. The African Union and Southern African Development Community, however, have stood firm with Zimbabwe and have routinely condemned the sanctions, calling for their unconditional removal in the international forum. SADC went further and set 25 October of each year to condemn the sanctions, call for their unconditional removal, and express solidarity with Zimbabwe. The Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, and other friendly countries have also stood by Zimbabwe, including helping us fight the effects of the heinous sanctions and blocking a resolution that sought to legitimize the sanctions in the United Nations Security Council. May I take this opportunity to thank all the continental and regional blocs, as well as the countries, organizations, and individuals that have stood firm with Zimbabwe on the sanctions issue. We say to them, thank you, and may you continue to support Zimbabwe until all illegal sanctions are removed from our motherland. I also call upon Zimbabweans to remain resolute and fight for the prosperity of our country despite the illegal sanctions. As I conclude, I call upon the countries that maintain sanctions on Zimbabwe to unconditionally remove them now. May God bless you. May God bless Zimbabwe. May God bless Africa. May God bless the world. I thank you.
We were listening to Golden Nuggets. I think our headline writers for tomorrow's editions, the headlines have been written for you. All you need to do is print. I think things that we didn't know, figures that we never heard. We heard them in this very, very iconic speech today. We were told that by very conservative estimates, Zimbabwe has lost $150 billion due to these heinous illegal sanctions. But we were told about the resilience of the Zimbabwean people, that despite swimming with a millstone on our necks, we doubled our GDP from $20 billion in 2018 to $40 billion. Now, we deserve to give ourselves a round of applause as Zimbabweans. You know, as we were listening to the Honorable Vice President taking us through the journey, giving us a complexion of on the impacts of sanctions on our health sector, the impact of sanctions on our education sector, our infrastructure, our economy shrunk, and so forth. At that very time, SADC was issuing a statement. Because remember, this is SADC Day. So SADC was issuing a statement with the indulgence of our guest of honor. I'll just read 2 paragraphs. Permission, sir? Thank you very much. The Southern African Development Community SADC reaffirms its unwavering solidarity with the government and the people of Zimbabwe in calling for lifting all sanctions that remain imposed on the Republic of Zimbabwe. This appeal by SADC for the immediate lifting of sanctions on the Republic of Zimbabwe rests on the backdrop of growing concern over the impact of these sanctions. Over the impact these sanctions continue to pose on the country and the SADC region. As a regional family, SADC reaffirms and SADC firmly echoes that the targeted sanctions geared at a few individuals in Zimbabwe adversely affect the whole country. It is now over 20 years since the imposition of these targeted sanctions, 2 decades marked by the inability of the people of Zimbabwe to fully achieve their potential across various sectors as a nation. This is about 8 paragraphs. I've read only 3. Let's thank them, please. Well, we said we're civil servants and we are civil servants, and one of the things that civil servants should do, if we are not doing it, we should do it, is be good timekeepers, be punctual, and do things and finish them on time, right? So including this occasion, we must run it on time and finish it on time. But when we look at our theme, which you can see there, it says, honestly, okay, so I'll read what I have here. I wanted you to read the banner, but it says, harnessing the youth for socio-economic development in the fight against illegal sanctions. So it will be fitting for us to conclude our day by getting a vote of thanks from the person that leads our youth in government, our youth as a nation, and of course, the youth of the ruling party. Honorable Timo Machakaire, the Minister of Youth, I think it's Youth and Empowerment, and Secretary for Youth Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Namesake, the Director of Ceremonies, thank you. Thank you. Honorable Vice President, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs, Honorable Mswere, Honorable Mavetsera, Secretary to the President, Deputy Ministers, and also I can see Honorable Barbara Rodzi, A very good morning to you all. Mangwanani. Nivukile. Honorable Vice President, basaranda kuwa pana pandere kungotenda. But sezvo zvamotaurwa navamangwana kuti ndinomira vechidiki. Pane zvandinoda kuti ndingoita upishana maringe nedambudziko kana kuti nekuremerwa kwatakaitwa nemasanctions. Ndichakumbirawo vamangwana vauye vanokumbira kuvaitwa tarisa munhu ari pasaidi pavo mubate ruoko sinobatwa ndakaita vamangwana mubate simdzai maoko acho mudenga ngatimudze muchanditeedzera zvandichange ndichitaura anyirira right ndikati sanctions munoti sanctions kapera ndindizoka sanctions right ndazvoo zvonapemangatana isu sezimbabwe akadzoikaise vanhu vari serious nenyaya yemasanctions isu semhuri yezimbabwe zvikuti kwete kumasanctions masanctions ari kutiurayira nyika yedu masanctions ari kuita kuti tisafambire mberi nebudiriro naizvozvo masanctions ngaabviswe masanctions ari kutiuraya pasi nemasanctions andinoona kuti izvozvo zvinenge maita kakumukira. Honorable Vice President, ndichakumbira kungotaura kastori kadiki maringe nemasanctions. Asi kana takaungana kudai zvakanaka kuti vanoteerera vanenge vateerera, vasingateerera vateereri. Kuungana kwakaita vanhu kudai neshoko ramataura rakanaka in your speech, Honorable Vice President, vamwe vatinavo havasi kuziva kuti masanctions akashatira chii. Asi nekutaura kwakaita kana paine vanoziva vane nzeve dzekunzwa vanzwa. Shumiro yangu ndeyekuti isu seZimbabwe, Honorable Vice President, masanctions ngaabviswe. Kana ivo vari kufungidzira kuti senyika tiri kutadza basa, ngavabvise masanctions, titadze pasi nemasanctions. Ngaabviswe masanctions, kana abviswa tione kuti chii chinoitika. Tione kuti chii chinoitika seZimbabwe. Saka ndoda kutenda zvakanyanyisisa nemashoko amataura nedzidziso yamatipa maringe nekuipa kwemasanctions. Ndinoziva kuti pane vanenge vachidaiwa ngaaramba aripo, asi vanhu vavo vari kushuvira nhamo mukati mevana veZimbabwe. Ndoda kutendai mese mauya pano nhasi tichifamba pamwe chete tichirwisa dambudziko remasanctions akatibata senyika. Honorable Vice President, pane imwe nyaya ndakamboverenga yekutanga mukomana so kanonzi Jonathan Lee. Mukomana uyu ndinomufananidza nemasanctions. Masanctions kana zvarinoita rikabata gumbo iri, ziya kuti wamira negumbo rimwe chete. Rikaparalaiza ruoko, ziya kuti wakusara neruoko rumwe chete. Kuti munhu anga achishanda mwiri wese unenge uchishanda. Jonathan Lee watotaura nezvake akapinda muWorld Guinness Book of Records nenyaya yemisikanzwa. Upenyu hwake hwese hwanga huri hwekusunga vanhu, akaita mukurumbira wekusunga vanhu. Munhu akabuda kumupembedza obva nomusuwa, munhu akada kungotaura zvakanaka kuti akadai obva musuwa. Shamwari yake yepamwoyo yaaitamba nayo akaisuwa. Mai vake vakamubereka akabva akasuwa futi. VZBC vobva vauya kuzotora bhota tsine mukomana akadai ndobva ati mapuwa mvumo nani yekuti mutore picha muchitaura nezvemukurumbira wangu, ndobva avasuwa. Saka masanctions anobata every corner. Iwe uri kutengesa pamusika, iwe uri kudhiraivha kombi, iwe uri kurima, hatikwanise kuenderera mberi, hatikwanise kusimudzira nekuti pese panenge pachibamba pachisunga. Saka naizvozvo ndoda kutendai muri yeZimbabwe nekuuya kwamaita tichirwisa dambudziko rakatiwira senyika. Ndinoshuvira kuti ngatirambei tichiridza mhere kusvika masanctions abviswa. Isu sevechidiki kana paine zvingaitwe kuti tiridze ngoma kuti masanctions abviswe tichaita saizvozvo, nekuti tine zvimwe zvakawanda zvatiri kutadza kuita kuburikidza nekusunga kwatakaita nemasanctions. Ndoda kutendai vese vauya maministers ari pano, madeputy ministers, vakuru vehurumende vari pano, nemi mose vashandi vehurumende vari pano, nekuuya nhasi tichimira nenyika yedu sezimbabwe sechinhu one. Zvinotipa muono wekuziva kuti tese tiri kuremerwa, tiri kurwadziwa nemasanctions zvakanyanyisisa sezimbabwe. Naizvozvo honorable vice president, ndoda kutendai pachabva pano tinongoramba tichienda tichiparidzira maprograms atiri kuita akawanda atichaita muzuva ranhasi maringe nekuchema, maringe nekutaura kana kuti kupanana chenjedzo nekuipa kwemasanctions. Ndikatore mukana uno kutendai mose muri pano. Mwari wekudenga akuitire zvakanaka. I thank you.
Tatenda honorable minister. Tingango nemvumo yavakuru vedu kuti vatibatira basa guru vanogona kumhanya havo nehumwe urongwa hwavo hwavainahwo hwebasa rakakoshera nyika yedu kudai, kana vatisunongora tozosara tichitevera zvedu. Asi ini ndinoda kutenda vatenda zvikuru vamachakaire, but ndinoda kutenda police band akamizvikeni kanetsa muspiritual. Thank you very much for that help and support. Kana tapedza panapa tichasiya zvakadaiwo tongoti for an hour pamunge takaroadshow anti-sanctions vanenge vari musquare munomu, then tozosimudza hedu zvinhu zvedu. Asi vamwe tese tinangodzokera kumaofisi yedu. Ndatenda hangu tisina kuacknowledge presence pandaona chief secretary achisvika, asi vice president vava relegate. Atindazoona futi secretary for external relations wemusangano vamubengedwa vachisvika. Tinokupa kunoreja iko tatenda hangu.
Yes, unoziva kuti vechidiki vese tichibva pano media, we are all invited to David Livingstone Primary School. David Livingstone Primary School. David Livingstone Primary School. Naizvozvo vese vechidiki nesu media tiri kuinvaitwa, tiri kukokwa kutenda David Livingstone Primary School.
Ichokwadi media kune subject andi sanction youth telo iribuka ku David Livingstone Primary School. So from here vanokwanisa kusvika pa David Livingstone Primary School ndomukana vachona uyo uri muono wekuti zvirango zvakatemerwa nyika yeZimbabwe zvingeoka zvichienda, ngazvibve ngazviende.
Hosa yedu yekuti takatorerei redu kupa kune vanhu ropa nenyaya hapana zvimwe. Imwe pese kwakutaurwa kuti hatuna maturo. Nyika takapuwa nayo newedenga, zviri pasi pevhu takapuwa newedenga. Saka izvozvo zvinhu izvozvo zvinofanira kushandiswa nevene veZimbabwe, kwete kuti auyawo zvakabva kune imwe nyika woya wotora ufu hwedu wonosizira nyika dzekwavo. Isu takati kwete, izvozvo ndozvisingaitiki. Zvadaro zvikanzi mazviitirei, maakutaridza vapasi rese kuti kana uri mukuru kuti master haafanirwi kutorerwa chigaro naslave wake nemushandi wake ndokuita kwakasvita. Ndozvatipinza paipapa. Asi isu takati aiwa, we now think outside the box. Saka sanctions or no sanctions Zimbabwe nokudirira. Endeko zvine zvama kuziva mese kuti pane makore matatu atina nzara muno, makore matatu tine witedi yakazvikwanira, hakuna kwachinotenga. Maminerals edu atanga kusimuka. Takutanga kuvaka industry yedu, manufacturing sector yedu, zvese takuzviitira zvatifundisa ivo ngavagare vari kuchaona chatsvaga munhu.
Munogona kukumbira kuti zviripe mari yatakarasikirwa nayo.
Iwe ingotarisa, ingoona kuti ndikufamba ndozimbwa. Vanhu veZimbabwe hatisizi tuta. Ndatenga.
So I asked for reparations.
Vana vakushaiwa mabasa vachingodzungaira vachinwa tunodhaka nekushaya zvekuita nekuda kwemasanctions. Vakuru chaivo mabasa chaivo hapana, kana kuti utengese zvitengeswa kuti tiendewo kunze kwenyika nekuda kwemasanction hapana. Saka tiri kuti ngaaende masanction, kana zvibvira nhasi chaivo ngaaende masanction, ngaabude. Ngaaende, hatisi kuwada, ngaaende, hamusi kumada.
About to complete our studies, to start our own business. But with these sanctions, at least once we start we are being deprived of our rights, we are being deprived of our economic rights. So
Wechingezi. Right. As a youth, our sanctions affecting you.
All right. As youth, we are actually about to complete our studies. We are from Harare Polytechnic, as you can see. We are about to complete our studies. But unfortunately, tinogona kubuda kumabasi, tinogona kubuda kuchikoro, toshaya mabasi.
Right. As a youth, how are sanctions affecting you?
All right. We are the students from Harare Polytechnic, as you can see. We are saying no to sanctions because we are about to complete our studies. As you can see, these are my fellow students.
Yes.
Actually in our last year to complete our studies, but we don't have jobs after we complete our studies. Our attachments, we might have struggles on attaining those attachments, and we want to start our own businesses, but because of these economic constraints we cannot have our own business. We have got ideas that are still in our minds, we cannot implement them, but if these sanctions go, we are sure that we are going to have our businesses standing. We are saying no to sanctions.
So we would dive into our clients and remove the sanctions. That's never sanctions.
You as an individual, what do you do? Teacher, or not teacher,
as a girl, I'm trying to do my own project. But in the 10 years, but now you know what I'm going to put business up is to farm by as so I want my sanctions that cheat, no cheat,
All right, thank you so much.
Abuso, gente.